Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. But I got to be totally transparent. I'm starting to get a little bit worried about one SEC program, a coach that I like, that I admire, that I respect, but things just feel weird. It is the Auburn Tigers, obviously coached by Hugh Freeze, okay? And so bottom line is this. Listen, first of all, it's a huge year in the SEC for any number of schools. For Arkansas and Sam Pittman, for Mark Stoops in Kentucky, for Billy Napier in Florida. You go on and on and on down the list. A lot is at stake in a lot of places. Brent Venables at Oklahoma. But to me, listen, I think all of them, there are reasons for excitement. I think all of them, there are reasons for concern. But it's mostly been a pretty quiet camp, pretty much ever, except for John Mateer Venmo Gate and DJ Lagway Bootgate. I think it's been pretty quiet in all of these places. But the thing about Auburn, it just feels like it's one story after another. And again, I have defended Hugh Freeze through the years. When he criticized his quarterbacks for too many turnovers last year, I said, well, what do you want him to say? His quarterbacks are turning the ball over too much. When people were blaming him for playing too much golf over the last couple months, I said, listen, he's got a stacked roster. The 2026 recruiting class is going to be small. I defended him. Heck, I don't think we talked about it. Even when he said, you know what we need in the SEC? Length and girth. You need a lot of length and girth in the SEC. I chuckled, but I didn't criticize, okay? And so the bottom line is, listen, I think there's a lot of nonsense offseason stories, but I will say there's a couple things that have popped on my radar that are kind of got me worried about, like, what the heck is kind of going on at Auburn right now? So let's go ahead and dive in. The first thing, heading into week one, they play Baylor on a Friday night, by the way. Producer Matt's going to be there. Matt, I'm wishing you nothing but the best because you need to come back in a good mood on Saturday and Sunday in week one, ready to work. But I bring it up because week one, they play Baylor. It's a big game, okay? And so I saw this story late last week. I glossed it over, but when you combine it with another story that has come out, I think it's worth discussing. This story, apparently through all the press availabilities or whatever, there has been conversation about who's actually the play caller, right? Because Hugh Freeze in the past has hired offensive coordinators. Hugh Freeze in the past has called plays. Well, a few days ago, this was actually via Lane Kiffin's Twitter feed. I saw this. Yes, Lane Kiffin, the troll. But let's just pop up the first tweet, Matt, about play calling. So this is from Justin Hawkinson, who, of course, covers Auburn. He's one of the great Auburn beat writers they have. This is what he tweeted late last week about the state of play calling at Auburn. Since we spoke with Derek Nix is the offensive coordinator, and Kent Austin yesterday. Kent Austin is the quarterback's coach. Just to reiterate, I can't believe this. Nix, the offensive coordinator, handles first down strategy and play calling. Kent Austin handles third down strategy and play calling. And as Nix said of Hugh Freeze, head coach has the authority to overrule anything we do or say. How often does Freeze overrule? Ken Austin was asked. He said, quote, it depends on how the game is going, but he's highly involved. To me, he is an outstanding play caller, and I've learned a ton. I've learned everything from working with him. All right, let me say this. I'm always careful to criticize strategy. I'm always careful. I'm not the guy that comes on shows after a big basketball game and that baseline out of bounds play. How could you do that? What are you? That's not my lane. Hugh Freeze knows more about football than I do, just like Brian Kelly does, just like Brent Venables does, just like Kalen DeBoer does, just like every single person in that Auburn football facility does. At the same time, can we all acknowledge it feels a little weird that a week before week one, the coaching staff is openly acknowledging that there are three different play callers at three different downs over the course of an offensive series, and that the head coach can overrule at any single time. Listen, I've heard of all sorts of things. I don't know that I've ever heard of three different play callers per series with one guy with the ability to overrule at any given time, okay? So that's weird. That's strange. Never heard of that before. It does not get better with the second piece of news. And the second piece of news is pretty straightforward. We are at the point of fall camp. We're naming starters everywhere. Bear Bachmeier at BYU was named starting quarterback today by BYU, freshman quarterback. Will it work? Will it not? Doesn't matter. He's the starter week 1. Julian Sayin, named starting quarterback at Ohio State, week 1. Joey Aguilar, named starting quarterback, Tennessee, week 1. You go on. Every school has decided to name their starting quarterback heading into week 1. Except for Auburn, who earlier this week announced that Hugh Freeze did his coaches show, and he said, according to Justin Hawkinson, that on Tiger Talk, that all 3 quarterbacks could play in the opener against Baylor. The 3 quarterbacks, by the way, Jackson Arnold transfer from Oklahoma, Ashton Daniels transfer from Stanford, and also the true freshman Deuce Knight, who everybody's excited about. So, to recap, for those of us who are just joining, for those of us who did not see it live, Auburn has 3 different play callers on any given offensive series that can be overruled at any given time, and they could play 3 quarterbacks. Now, to be clear, maybe Hugh Freeze is totally trying to pull the wool over our eyes. Maybe he's trying to keep Baylor on their toes and prepare for 3 different guys. All I will say is a couple things. 1, I don't question Hugh Freeze's football acumen, but if Ryan Day can name a starter and Josh Heupel can name a starter, it's probably just best to name a starter publicly, okay? But 2, here is my big takeaway, okay? Remember, has your parents ever told you, like your parents or a guidance counselor or an advisor or whatever, when somebody tells you who they are, listen to them? Well, I have come to this conclusion in college football, in sports in general. When a program, when a college football program or an NFL organization or whatever, when they tell you who they are, listen. And right now, I hate to say it, but Auburn seems a little bit dysfunctional. Okay, so bottom line is, like I said, this isn't just an Auburn thing. You know, Cleveland Browns, they've been telling us for 2 decades, 3 decades that they're dysfunctional. Kind of proven it time and time again. New York Jets, every single year, it's a new circus in town. If they tell you who they are, believe them. By the way, you know what this actually kind of reminds me of? Texas A&M, right? Because I was the last person on Jimbo Fisher Island. And I think Jimbo Fisher, by the way, was a little bit of a unique deal. He obviously got paid so much money, got that huge extension. So even that was kind of unique unto itself. But I remember just like trying to defend Hugh Freeze or trying to defend Jimbo Fisher, excuse me. And eventually it just got to like, you know what it kind of reminded me of? You know the line in Mean Girls, stop trying to make fetch a thing or fletch a thing or whatever. Sorry, been a while since I've quoted Mean Girls. That's kind of how it got with Jimbo Fisher. It's like, stop trying to make Jimbo Fisher a thing. It's not going to work out. He's not the right guy. He's not going to get it done. And I'm not quite there with Auburn yet, but I'm getting close because, like I said, I've been a Hugh Freeze defender. I defended him last year when he threw his quarterbacks under the bus. I defended him with the golf. And I will say this, there is absolutely reason to believe that this team could be good this year. They had a top 20 defense. I think people forget that. And I think the other thing is, even though they went 5-7 a year ago, it is worth acknowledging 4 of those losses could have easily been wins. They had more than 100 plus yards of total off. They had 100 more yards of total offense, than Arkansas lost. Cal, they had 5 offensive turnovers, lost by a touchdown. Oklahoma, a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter, lost. Missouri, a 20-3 lead in the second half, lost. So the point I'm trying to make is Auburn easily, even though they went 5-7. By the way, producer Matt's getting PTSD behind the scenes here. I'm sorry, buddy. But as easily as they went 5-7, they easily could have been 7-5. They could have been 9-3, but I think 7-5 would have been perfectly logical for last season. But at the same time, I just keep going back to when there are just narratives and stories and one thing after the other, you just got to start to worry a little bit. And so with Auburn, I will say, like I said, there is a pathway to a successful season. I don't think there's any doubt about it. Now, the schedule starts off tough, as I said, with Baylor early in the season. Baylor is a team that in theory could be, I think frankly could be the Big 12 champ. I saw my buddy Brandon Walker from Barstool Sports. Don't know Brandon well, but I respect the hell out of his college football opinions. He picked Baylor to win the Big 12. But you have Baylor early. You have at Oklahoma, at A&M to open the SEC slate. But once you get past those games, relatively manageable outside of Georgia and Alabama. You get Missouri at home. You get Kentucky at home. You got to go to Vandy where you won a few years ago. And oh, by the way, you also get Arkansas, and we all know what's going on at Arkansas. So I just bring it up because the pathway is there, but I just keep going back to what I said. When a college football program tells you who they are, go ahead and believe them. And so right now, Auburn is a total stay away to me. I'm officially nervous. I'm officially worried. The good news is I think we'll get some sort of clarification week 1. If it is a total train wreck with multiple quarterbacks, multiple penalties, procedural penalties because they can't get in the play, then I think we worry. If not, then we sit there and say, okay, Hugh Freeze knows what he's doing. If they can get that win, I think they can have a very successful season because, like I said, all of a sudden it changes the entire dynamic of the entire year, basically. But again, for the last time, when a college football program tells you who they are, go ahead and just accept it because right now things are weird there. They're the only team in America that seems comfortable playing 3 QBs, only team in America with 3 different play callers. Hope I'm wrong, like Hugh Freeze. We'll see if I am.